Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I was having a conversation last night with a friend of mine named David Sloan, who is an attorney in Texas, who I hope to have on one of these days and talk about what he does. Fascinating stuff. But he said, by the way, Steve, did you know that the feds have finally stepped in and done something about robocalls? And I am so sick of people telling me that, because we've been hearing this for years, that they're going to do something, they're going to do something. And he said, no, they actually did. Forgive my skepticism and my laughter, but he sent me the link, and it turns out, here's the press release from the Department of Justice. United States files civil complaints seeking temporary restraining orders against telecom carriers facilitating millions of fraudulent robocalls. The United States government has finally stepped in and filed lawsuits to stop the robocallers. And I've been saying for years they could if they wanted to. They just didn't want to, apparently. And I've had people say, Steve, they couldn't do anything. There's nothing that can be done. Well, there's something that can be done, and here it is. First ever injunction sought by Department of Justice against telecommunications companies facilitating robocalls. And again, this is the press release sent out by the DOJ yesterday, 2 days ago. The United States filed 2 civil complaints seeking temporary restraining orders in landmark cases against 5 companies and 3 people allegedly responsible for carrying many millions of fraudulent robocalls from foreign call centers to individuals in the United States. The complaints allege that the companies were warned numerous times that they were carrying fraudulent robocalls, including government and business imposter calls, but they continued to facilitate the delivery of these calls. I've been saying it all along. The phone companies know what's happening. These companies know that they're being used to help people over here, hurt people over here, and they're in the middle of the transaction. The calls, most of which originated in India, led to substantial financial losses suffered by elderly and vulnerable victims in the United States. Richard P. Donahue, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Jeffrey Rosen, Deputy Attorney General, Jody H. Hunt, Assistant Attorney General of the Justice Department Civil Division, Gary Barksdale, Chief Postal Inspector, United States Postal Inspection Service, and Gail S. Ennis, Inspector General of the Social Security Administration, made the announcement. So there's all these different groups finally got together and coordinated, so let's do something substantial to shut these people down. The 2 cases announced today contain similar allegations. I'm not going to tell you the names of all these companies because they're just a bunch of gibberish. It's this kind of corporate speak gobbledygook. Companies like E-Commerce National LLC, doing business as tollfreedeals.com, or SIP Retail DBA SIPRetail.com, and so on. The defendants in the other case are a bunch of other companies like that. In each case, the Department of Justice has sought an order immediately halting the defendant's transmission of allegedly unlawful robocall traffic. A federal court has entered a TRO against one of these companies already. Temporary restraining order means that the company has gotten a court order saying stop. And if you want to do something about this, come into court and explain why it doesn't get turned into a permanent injunction. In the cases announced now, the United States alleges the defendants operate Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP, carriers, which use a broadband internet connection rather than traditional phone lines to carry telephone calls. Numerous foreign-based call centers and VoIP carriers are alleged to have used the defendants' VoIP carrier services to pass fraudulent robocalls to victims in the U.S. The complaints specifically allege that the defendants served as gateway carriers, making them the entry point for foreign-initiated calls into the U.S., and that is how they get into the system. For example, the complaint against the owner-operators of E-Commerce National DBA tollfreedeals.com alleges that the defendants carried 720 million calls during one 23-day period. It's just an example. And that more than 425 million of those calls lasted less than 1 second because the calls did not connect or the recipients immediately hung up, indicating that these were in fact robocalls. And you would think that carriers might recognize, somebody used our services to make 720 million phone calls, 425 million of which only lasted a second or less. Gee, I wonder if they're doing something wrong or illegal. The complaint further alleges that many of the 720 million calls were fraudulent and used spoofed or faked caller ID numbers. And I mentioned that before. I get calls on my desk phone. And by the way, I had somebody, I tell people I like getting mail, email, whatever it is, correspondence, friend requests, whatever. I had an attorney in another state type a letter to me actually type a letter and sign it, put it in an envelope, mail it to me. And the letter had no phone number on it, no email address on it, and all it had was the guy's name. And he said, Steve, they have apps. You can put an app on your cell phone to get rid of these. Why are you complaining about robocalls? Because I have an office phone. My office phone is not a cell phone. Who uses a cell phone for an office phone? So the app you can put on your cell phone, great. Can't put it on my desk phone. But if you're going to mail me a letter with advice, at least put a phone number so I can call you back and thank you for it, or explain why we appear to have this disconnect where you completely misunderstood what I was talking about. But I've gotten spoofed phone calls on my desk phone, my office phone, my landline, if you want to call it that. And it'll say, Beaumont Hospital's calling you. And I pick up the phone. Hey, it's Rachel from Card Services. I've gotten spoofed phone calls that say it's the city of Royal Oak calling. And the city of Royal Oak is a city within which I've had my office at one point or another. And I've spent time in the courts in Royal Oak also. So when I get a spoofed phone call and it says Beaumont Hospital calling, I can tell you that my only interactions with Beaumont Hospital in the past have been serious. It's a hospital. It's right down the street from my old office. Okay? So when they start spoofing numbers like that, that ought to be against the law. Oh, wait, it is. And now they're doing something about it. So the calls facilitated by the defendants often falsely threaten victims with a variety of catastrophic government actions, including termination of Social Security benefits, imminent arrest for alleged tax fraud, and deportation for supposed failure to fill out immigration forms correctly. And I've told you before, I've now gotten the one about your Social Security number has been associated with a car found burning on the border that was filled with cocaine and dead bodies, and your Social Security benefits are about to get suspended. The stories make no sense. That's the comical part. Sometimes they don't. But unfortunately, some people fall for these because they don't understand that this technology exists. We are using all available tools and resources to stop foreign call center scammers, and for the first time, they're U.S.-based enablers. I've been saying this so long. They could stop this because of the fact that there are people in the U.S. who are gatekeepers. But protecting individuals from schemes that result in catastrophic losses to the victims is a priority of this office and the Department of Justice. Robocalls are an annoyance to many Americans, and those that are fraudulent and predatory are a serious problem. Well, one of the reasons they're doing robocalls is what they're doing is illegal. They know it's illegal. Otherwise, they wouldn't spoof their phone numbers and so on. So when they call you up and go, hey, this is Rachel from Card Services, and we're ready to lower the rates on your Visa, MasterCard, and Discover card. Well, it's obviously fraudulent. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover aren't the same company. And Rachel from Card Services, I believe if they could find the woman whose voice was used for that, she should go to jail. Try and convince me I'm wrong. Oh, boy. The Department of Justice will pursue to the fullest extent of the law individuals in the United States who knowingly facilitate imposter fraud calls using both criminal and civil tools when appropriate. So right now, they're simply talking about a lawsuit. These are lawsuits that are being filed. These are civil actions, which means that they can get court orders to stop these people. They can probably be fined, or they can get damages levied against them. But I'd like to see the criminal side of this too. Start locking people up and throwing them in jail. It's about time. We look forward to working closely with law enforcement colleagues in India and elsewhere around the world to identify those behind these calls so that we can bring them to justice. Anyone who engages in deceptive practices like imposter fraud should know, regardless of where they are, they will not go undetected and will be held accountable, stated the USPS Chief Inspector Barksdale. We will continue to work with the DOJ and our other partners to prevent and deter ongoing harm. Today's events are the culmination of months of hard work and a critical step in holding these and other companies accountable for being the link between overseas scammers and their victims. We will continue to pursue those, etc., etc. Now, I have to tell you, because I'm a skeptical sort, that I'm still skeptical. It's going to be interesting to see if these lawsuits have any effect. Because as you may have gathered, when you've got a company that's 123 ABC Inc. doing business as 456XYZ.com LLC, that these corporations have all been set up as shells. They're probably nesting, like nesting dolls, but nesting shells. And so when they serve a lawsuit on a company, the company pretty much will often just pull a plug and walk away. Now, the company still has to have a person there someplace who somehow, I mean, corporations aren't invented by artificial intelligence and Skynet. Okay, there's a human being behind the corporation. There has to be. But the tricky part then is, what if these corporations are being created and formed by people who aren't even in the U.S.? And theoretically, it shouldn't be that easy to do, but it can be done. And so the problem they're probably going to have is it's going to be the old proverbial whack-a-mole game. That is that they can put this company out of business by getting a huge default judgment against them. And the principals of that business will walk away from it and start another business over here. CDE789.com, doing business as FJH 453 Inc. LLC Co. Limited. A Delaware corporation. But I like to think that when you play whack-a-mole, if nothing else, the joy you get from whacking the mole is some benefit. And I would have to think that as they do this and as they get more aggressive with it, they might be able to maybe not stop it, but slow it or shut it down to some extent. But the good news is that underneath it all, there appear to be these telecom companies. And those people maybe have a presence that can be shut down. We'll see. So the claims made in the complaints are allegations that if the case were to proceed to trial, the government must prove to receive a determination of liability. That's their way of saying, by the way, these people are all innocent until proven guilty, and they're simply being sued, so these aren't even crimes yet. And of course, these are allegations which they have the right to fight and litigate to the fullest extent of the law in court. Can you imagine going to a jury selection? You get to be on a jury, and somebody says, would you like to be served on a jury? This case involves robocallers. It's my fantasy. Since the president signed the Bipartisan Elder Abuse Prevention Prosecution Act into law, the Department of Justice has participated in hundreds of enforcement actions in criminal and civil cases that targeted or disproportionately affected seniors. In particular, back in March, the department announced the largest elder fraud enforcement action in American history, charging more than 260 defendants in a nationwide elder fraud sweep. The department has likewise conducted hundreds of trainings and outreach sessions across the country since the passage of the act. So this stuff is going on. And like I said, I've been promised that robocalls will end just like we were promised jetpacks and flying cars when we were children. And we came to realize it's a coming of age thing in America. You are an adult when you realize that the jetpacks ain't coming. Flying cars are not just around the corner. And it's another fact, sad fact of growing up when you understand that robocalls can't be stopped. Now, jetpacks and flying cars, I'm hopeful. Ending robocalls, I'm also hopeful. And like I said, I think I've done a story before of one or two guys. They'll catch one or two people and just come down on them like a ton of bricks. That's good. And if they can put a bunch of these guys out of business, they'll get replaced. But it's a start. It's a start. And you understand that in the spectrum of things to do, there is the idea that there's nothing can be done. And there's the idea that, we can solve this problem completely. Completely. Okay? Nothing can be done. We can solve it completely. So we were over here for a long, long time. I've been saying we should push the meter in this direction. Optimists say we should be heading that way. We should try to do something. Maybe we can't do everything. Maybe we can't solve every problem. Maybe we can't eradicate this entirely. But we should try. So for the naysayers who said, no, nothing can be done. Let's just quit. No. This is progress. This is progress. How far will it move the needle? I don't know. That's the one thing I don't know. But I like to see that they're trying something. Okay? So lawsuits have been filed. TROs have been issued. More injunctions have been sought. And I will follow this. But we'll see. But I think this might be a good step in the right direction. So there you go. Questions, comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. He who laughs last probably made a backup.